Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I will be talking about the top 3 ways to obtain Canadian citizenship in Canada. When a foreign national obtains permanent residency in Canada, this is the first step to eventually obtaining Canadian citizenship. Much like obtaining permanent residency in Canada, there are many requirements and conditions in order to obtain Canadian citizenship. To be quite honest, one of the most difficult parts of obtaining Canadian citizenship is actually first obtaining the permanent residency status within Canada. Any permanent resident in Canada can verify that it is not an easy endeavor to actually obtain permanent residency status within Canada. Once they have received their permanent residency status in Canada, however, there are also other requirements that must be maintained and met in order to obtain Canadian citizenship. For instance, in order to apply for Canadian citizenship in Canada, you must abide by the following requirements and conditions: age, valid permanent residency status in Canada, residency obligations, income tax filing, intent to reside in Canada, language abilities, knowledge of Canada, and prohibitions. If you have successfully abided by all of these requirements and conditions, you are well on your way to obtaining Canadian citizenship. The next steps in order to obtain Canadian citizenship would be applying for Canadian citizenship, then taking the test for Canadian citizenship, and finally taking the oath for Canadian citizenship. If and when this is all completed, you will receive your Canadian citizenship certificate in the mail. Once you have obtained Canadian citizenship, you will not only be able to work, live, or study anywhere in Canada, but you will also be able to actively participate in the democratic practice of Canada's government. In order to obtain Canadian citizenship, one must first obtain permanent residency status, like I said before. Therefore, the following circumstances are 3 ways in order to obtain permanent residency status, which can eventually lead to Canadian citizenship. Spousal sponsorship. In Canada, the government highly prioritizes family reunification. Therefore, if you are married to a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, this may be one of the fastest ways in order to obtain permanent residency status within Canada. As a result, if you are committed to your spouse and would like to sponsor them to Canada, applying for spousal sponsorship would be the best opportunity to do so. It is important to note that Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada has investigated and has cracked down on fraudulent marriages. These marriages are also known as marriages of convenience. The Canadian government does not tolerate these marriages whatsoever, and they have thoroughly investigated further to prevent any of these marriages from happening. Conclusively, if you have successfully gained permanent residency through the spousal sponsorship in Canada, then you must proceed to meet all of the requirements of Canadian citizenship before applying. Express Entry. This program is extremely popular for foreign nationals with skilled work experience. The Express Entry program is an online immigration application system that allows foreign nationals to create online profiles and to have the chance of obtaining permanent residency status in Canada. Foreign nationals that become candidates in this program are invited into a pool, and if they are one of the highest ranked candidates, then they will be invited to apply for permanent residency status in Canada. The 3 federal immigration programs that fall under Express Entry are the Federal Skilled Worker Program, the Federal Skilled Trades Program, as well as the Canadian Experience Class. This process is not simple, and it is very important that you assess whether you are eligible to apply for these programs ahead of time. However, if you have successfully obtained permanent residency status within Canada through one of these programs, then you have to meet the requirements of the Canadian citizenship before applying. Study permit and postgraduate work permit. Every year, the Canadian government allows international students to come to Canada to study. These international students often come to Canada for a couple of years to complete their studies. However, once their studies have been complete, the study permit will also indicate that they must leave the country. If the international student would like to stay within Canada and possibly contribute to the Canadian economy, they can apply for a postgraduate work permit. Additionally, if they have obtained this work permit and have worked for the Canadian employer for a minimum of 1 year, they may actually be able to apply for permanent residency in Canada. This would be specifically through the Canadian Experience class. If they have successfully obtained permanent residency status in Canada, they must abide by the requirements of the Canadian Citizenship in order to apply. It is very important that you have taken all of the information into consideration if you are trying to apply for Canadian citizenship or obtain permanent residency status in Canada. Here at Akrami & Associates, we have dealt with many different immigration matters, and we have helped many of our clients either obtain permanent residency status in Canada or Canadian citizenship. If you feel like you would be eligible for either or, please do contact us. With Akrami & Associates, there's always a way.